Many great stories over the weekend about Bob Gibson, the Cardinals legend who passed away at the age of 84, renowned for his competitiveness. You know, I've said on the TV side, they should really have some measure of competitiveness and call it like the Gibson meter, because famous for that, pitched with a broken leg. So many Gibson accolades, 9 Gold Gloves, 9-time All-Star. But a lot of stories, too, about the man that he was that we didn't see because of that gruff exterior that he wanted to portray. So we talk it over the Kilcoyne Conversation with Ozzie Smith, a fellow Cardinal Hall of Famer who got to know Bob really well after Ozzie was inducted into Cooperstown. So this Kilcoyne Conversation, a special edition talking about Bob Gibson. It's presented by Triad Bank, B&G Tuck Pointing, Marie Davila Senior Living, and Appliance Discounters. We appreciate their support, and we also really appreciate Ozzie Smith sharing these stories about his friend, Bob Gibson.
You didn't play with Bob, but obviously you've been around him for years. When the tributes roll in, we hear about his toughness, and then you start learning a little more about the jabs. And I kind of always had this idea when you guys were alone, the Redcoats, I could almost see him as the ringleader of the roast master.
Well, he was sort of like George Hendrick. He gets it started, then he'd dart out and have you guys arguing with each other. He was I think that was one of the secrets of Bob Gibson, his great sense of humor. We had a lot of good times together, especially here late. When I got into the Hall of Fame, we really developed a very good, close relationship and had a chance to spend a lot of time together. And, I tried to speak to him once a week for the last 6 months. And the last couple weeks were really, really tough, because we had those setbacks. And I don't care how much something's coming. It's still not easy. It wasn't easy, watching as things started to slow down and he went back into the hospital. And unfortunately, the last time that I talked to him was for him to tell me exactly what it was he wanted me to say at Lou's funeral and stuff. But I knew at that time that things had taken a turn for the worst.
And he was tough as nails as a player, but I think even in post-career, when we were around him, we were still afraid of him. And I think he kind of liked that, didn't he? He liked knowing everybody knew he was tough.
Well, you know what? I think that was the image that he wanted to project, that exterior, that tough exterior. And then there are 3 people in baseball that I think carried that exterior look. That was Eddie Murray, Andre Dawson, and Bob Gibson. And basically that was a defense mechanism to ward people off. But once you're able to get through that exterior, you'll find that they were very warm, very caring, and wonderful people who all have a great sense of humor. And Bob had a great sense of humor. He used to always tell me that if he had played shortstop, nobody would even know who I was. And and there may be some truth to that, Martin. Because he was that talented an athlete. He played for the Globetrotters. Just a great athlete and a great person to be around. And he was very cerebral too. Much like Lou Brock. They knew their craft and how to go about it. And I think that it speaks to the type of talent and skill and the legend of St. Louis Cardinal baseball. And those guys, when I talk about Stan and Lou and Red and Bob, it's very legendary because they went about the game a certain way and presented a product on the field that wear birds on the back could be very proud of.
It's amazing the connection the Cardinal franchise, the present players have with the past. To see Yadier Molina emotional talking about Bob Gibson, there's a special link there that I don't think even us on the outside don't quite get when it's a Hall of Famer that walks in Jupiter and talks to the team. To see Molina genuinely more upset about Bob's passing than a playoff game, to me was very telling.
Yeah, I think that, part of that, Martin, is the fact that the Hall of Famers for the St. Louis Cardinals, they were still real. We could still visit with them. You could still see them. You could touch them. You could talk to them. So I think that makes it very different as isn't the case with a lot of other teams that have guys that are in the Hall of Fame. These were all guys that we had a chance to spend some time with. And I say these guys, I guess I include myself there too, that people can still see and touch and feel and be a part of it. And I think that when you talk about opening day and the spectacle that it has become, the tradition and stuff that it has become has really made baseball so much more special here in this town.
Ever talk to Bob about coming along in the late 50s, pitching the 60s? I mean, I'm sure he dealt with a lot of racism, and yet we see that stoic presence on the mound. I've wondered in private if you guys ever talked about what he had to go through.
That's part of what drove Bob. The things that they had to deal with, and I'm not sure that people really understood that. Even in the late 60s, those guys had to stay in different places. They had to find their own place to stay when they went on the road, and it was different. The contrast between he and Lou Brock. I think Bob took it a lot harder than Lou did. When you saw Lou always had a smile on his face and stuff. But those guys had a lot of things to deal with as they came through. And, you have to take your cap off to the way that they were able to handle it, still be able to go out there and perform the way that they did. But more than some of the other guys, I think that's what made Bob Gibson great. It was the challenge that he had, not only on the field, but off the field as well. And they were great. They were great players.
It's really been a rough stretch. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Red passed, and now Lou and Bob back to back. As a Red jacket wearer, a Cardinal Hall of Famer, I would think it's been an emotionally draining stretch for you guys.
It certainly has. And, 2020 has just been one of those weird years, man. It's one of the weirdest years that, that any of us have ever had to deal with. And especially here lately, losing Lou and then losing Bob. You never know exactly how it's gonna hit you. You know it's coming, but when reality sits in, man, it's a gut punch. It punches you right in the gut. And when I go to the Hall of Fame every year, you look around and you say to yourself, who's not going to be here next year? And looking at the last time that we were all together at the Hall of Fame, I would have never thought that it would be Lou and Bob that would not be there next year.
Again, our thanks to Ozzie Smith, the Cardinal Hall of Famer, always gracious with his time. Great insight as well to the Cardinal franchise, to the Cardinal legends that he has been side by side with for so many years. Thanks for checking out the Kilcoyne Conversation. We have weekly visits. Doesn't matter if it's a former player, the likes of Ozzie Smith or Chris Pronger, maybe somebody current like Craig Berube or John Mozeliak. Make sure you subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and get the Kilcoyne Conversation delivered directly to you. Thanks for tuning in.